Well, 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 JP Morgan is getting off scot-free. Their collaboration with Jeffrey Epstein in his multi-billion-dollar pedophile ring is just going to be swept under the rug. In fact, officially, it never even happened, because in the settlement, JP Morgan admitted no wrongdoing. The U.S. Virgin Islands was suing JP Morgan Chase over their involvement with Epstein and allegations that JP Morgan aided and abetted his child sex trafficking operation, and that they helped cover it up, that they concealed what Epstein was doing. And for this crime, rather than any prison time, the U.S. Virgin Islands, which, remember, the U.S. Virgin Islands is not even a state. It's two little tiny islands. It's powerless in terms of overall U.S. governmental power. I mean, it's a speck of an entity within the United States, but it does exist, and they try to use what little power they have to extract $190 million, even if they couldn't send anyone like Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, to prison. Even though we all know if this wasn't the great, systemically important bank known as JP Morgan Chase, the entire business would have been shut down, and all of the principals, the owners, the executives would have been sentenced to prison, and they would be registered sex offenders. But no, instead, the only person who is going to, who has gotten any criminal conviction and any prison sentence with respect to Jeffrey Epstein's whole operation was Ghislaine Maxwell. So anyway, this settlement, from a financial perspective, was not so bad. I mean, it's a good deal if you're just looking at it in terms of, hey, they wanted $190 million. At trial, they were offered $75 million. If I was suing someone for $190 million, depending on what the real damages were, if there actually were things that were broken that had to be fixed, maybe $75 million wouldn't be so good. But when you're starting from nothing anyway, it's not like the U.S. Virgin Islands had anything at stake. $75 million to get out of this, that's pretty good. And for JP Morgan, essentially what they're getting is they're buying their innocence in writing, because they admitted no wrongdoing. That's the settlement. They're saying, you know what, we'll just pay you off. We will bribe you to drop the case. That is what a settlement is. And when you are one of the biggest banks in the world, you can bribe just about any government on the planet to forgive your criminality. And so, sure, the victims of Epstein may not forgive JP Morgan Chase for what they've done, for enabling their abuse, for probably profiting off of whatever sort of financial shenanigans enabled Jeffrey Epstein to amass his fortune, because we know it all had to be some kind of money laundering, since he didn't have any clients. He, other than perhaps Les Wexner, he didn't have a real business, yet he had billions of dollars that he was moving around through the pipelines of American finance and its financial intermediaries, such as JP Morgan Chase, who benefit from all that. May I remind you folks that JP Morgan Chase closed Kanye West's bank accounts because they didn't want to be associated with him, because they thought he was too toxic and immoral. But they did business with Jeffrey Epstein throughout his entire life. And with this lawsuit now ending with a settlement, I think this is the last Epstein-related litigation, at least high-profile litigation, that had any chance of exposing the truth I think this puts an end to it. And what is so sad, not that I had super high hopes for the Virgin Islands investigation anyway, since I believe the Attorney General who originally brought this case had been smeared and taken out in a political hit job long before this case ever was going to come to trial. Had it gone to trial, it would have been nice to hear at least some details come out. Of course, I'm sure that the courts would have suppressed as much information as possible. Anything that would have made J.P. Morgan Chase look bad, anything that would have proven J.P. Morgan Chase's direct culpability in the abuse of young girls, all of that would have been hidden. And so for now, I think any hope that we had of, not that I had any hope, of the truth coming out or any more truth coming out, I think that those hopes are dashed. It's all over. Perhaps 40 years from now, we'll get some details leaked about Epstein. Perhaps when the wall comes down and the Stasi files are open to the public, we will learn just exactly who was involved with Epstein, who procured his services, who was pulling his strings, all of that, long after everyone who could be punished is dead and forgotten. And honestly, by then, no one will even really care by the time it's revealed, because there will be so many more darker secrets that will be revealed at a time like that, when the American government truly collapses and the CIA files are made public. And the same, CIA, FBI, all those agencies. Although, knowing them, they'll probably just burn all the records on their way out when the whole system comes crashing down at some point in the future. So there really is there's nothing positive to take away from this. There's nothing to be happy about. The settlement is unsurprising, but it doesn't make me happy, but it's also not disappointing. When you go in with zero expectations, it's hard to be disappointed. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.